Okay, good day, City of Riverside voters. This is Lewis Allen. I'm the chair of the Mission Grove Neighborhood Alliance. We're sponsoring interviews with the city council candidates. We had a couple of forums already starting in January. If you haven't seen those, we invite you to go to our website at missiongrovena.org, and you can find those and be able to watch those and review the candidates. But today we have Mike Vahl from Ward 2 candidate. We're going to talk to Mike about several things, spend a few minutes with him. Mike, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Mike, I know you've introduced yourself to the city before and a number of times, and it's hard for a candidate. You think you're repeating yourself, but you might have people that do not know who you are. So just take a minute and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Louis. My name is Mike Vahl. I have been a resident of Riverside for 35 years. I was married and moved out here from Newport Beach. I bought my house with my wife 31 years ago this June, and so we've lived in the same house for 31 years. My kids are both grown up. We've raised them in that house and raised them in Riverside, playing all kinds of sports and doing all kinds of Riverside activities.
Okay. So we got a couple of questions for Mike, 2 questions that we gave him so he can prepare answers for those because they're kind of complex. And then we're going to follow up with questions afterwards of that, spend about 15 minutes here. So, first question for Mike. Describe a situation where you discovered waste, duplication, or misuse of funds. How did you identify it? Who did you have to persuade? And what changed as a result?
Well, I've never found misuse or fraud, but what in my 25 years at Canyon Lake, the closest thing I can come up with is we had a printing company that was in the Canyon Lake area that we had a contract with the POA, and we sent all of our printing there. We got a really good price because we were local big business. And one year we had one of the departments all of a sudden for an event that we have every year, so the expenses are very standardized, was a huge jump in printing. And so I ran the detail, and it's for a print shop that's down in Lake Elsinore, and I'm going to the manager, why are you using this print shop and not our guys across the street? And she goes, well, my neighbor has a new business and I wanted to support him. And I said, well, okay, that's nice for one time, but from now on we have rules around here and we do this stuff. And because I follow the budgeting so closely, I did it for 25 years. And so I know exactly what everybody's spending money on, and so anything that came from a big variance like that, I caught generally within a month and figured out what it was. And if it was an anomaly, if it was something that really it was just, the way it was, we had some emergency or whatever. So I was able to make sure that we kept our budgets right where they were supposed to be, which the board was very appreciative of over that whole 2 decades worth of work.
So let me do a follow-up with that. So what was your position exactly at Canyon Lake?
For 25 years, I was the IT director. And then because I was part-time, I was a consultant, they had gone through 2 or 3 not very good controllers. And so they asked me if I could do that. They said, you got an MBA, can you do this job too? And I said, sure. I sat in the accounting department. I knew exactly what was going on every day. So I just took on those duties. And then after about 7 years, they decided to hire a full-time controller because the boards change and the makeup changes of what they want to do. And so they said, well, we were hiring a full-time controller, but since you sit in accounting, we want you to be the accounting manager. So I ended up being the accounting manager for the last 12 years.
So is Canyon Lake a city?
It is a city. At that time, it was the POA, and the POA still exists, a property owners association. And so the POA is separate from the city. The city does, they manage the police and the fire and the taxation stuff. And then at the POA, we manage all the facilities, the roads, the parks, the equestrian center, the golf course, all of the stuff. And we hire all the people that work for the POA itself.
Yeah, because it's basically a private.
Right, it's a
Everything's
private community.
So they have to manage it like it was their own city.
Correct.
Except for those services you mentioned.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Second question. City decisions often disadvantage some residents while benefiting others. Tell us about a time when you had to make such a trade-off. How did you communicate that with the losing party or either party? And what, if anything, did you do to mitigate the impacts?
This is another Canyon Lake story. I got a lot of Canyon Lake stories after 25 years. But over by the equestrian center, we had baseball fields. They played softball for adults, and they played Little League over there. And so they decided at one point they wanted to put lights in. And so we went out to bid, and went through the whole process, and they specs and what they wanted to do. Well, it turned out that once you add lights to a baseball field, which we found out in Andolka Park, did the same thing. The people that were right there, all of a sudden it's daylight all day, all night. And one of my closest friends lived right by there, was hugely affected by it. And so we spent 2 years having people, or the lighting contractors, come out and, adjusting the angles and all that stuff, and we got it about as good as we could, but it was still a large inconvenience to the people that lived right there.
Yeah.
But for the betterment of the 5,000 home lots, there's 4,804 to be exact. For all the residents, it was a great deal, but for those guys, it was a little inconvenient.
Yeah, very good. Okay, this is a topic that's come up soon. It came up the other day in a meeting we had. The city is basically wants to extend or renew, or whatever you want to call it, Measure Z, and basically raise the sales tax by 0.25%. What is your opinion of that whole Measure Z piece?
I think it's been mismanaged from the start, so there's no reason to extend it, especially 10 years early, or to add an additional tax to it until they get it corrected for the main tax. I think that the way that it's set up right now is, they said a lot of the line items that are in the tax expenditure are things that should be on the regular budget. They've got 150 police, roughly $15 million in police salaries. They've got street paving, they've got firemen's salaries, and a number of other things that should be part of the real budget, not the tax budget. And the reason people put stuff in that on the tax budget is because they'll say, well, we can't get rid of it, we have to get rid of 150 policemen and 55 or whatever it is firemen, and we can't pave roads anymore. All that stuff should be in the main budget, and all the things like the money they spend on all kinds of other stuff, general fund stuff, should be on the tax bill, the tax revenue, and so that way, if you don't have it one year, you don't have to spend it.
Right.
But people's salaries, you have to spend.
Well, there's also the part of it where they want to extend the deadline indefinitely instead of 2036.
Right, well, I don't know why they need to do that. If in 8 years, they decide, we've got something coming up, like currently, we have the fire stations. The fire stations are $84 million that they need to get. This tax was originally thought to generate $42 million a year. It's now close to 90. So in 1 year, you could theoretically pay for it, but you'd have to get rid of some other stuff. But you could take out a 10-year bond, put $8 million a year, or $9 million, and pay that thing off in 10 years with the revenue, because it was sold as a first responder public safety tax.
Emergency services.
Right, and they've spent, a good 10 or 15% of it on that. And the rest of it they're spending on salaries and pension fund catch-up, and we got the new library, and they're subsidizing the Cheech and for $2 million a year.
Well, the other two things that have come up in it is the fact that they said all the money is spent for the next 5 years from that Measure Z already. And the other thing is, the city council just passed in the consent calendar, allocated $195,000 for the city manager to go out and create informative, is the word they used, material to get people knowledgeable about this measure and to encourage them to get out and vote.
It will be informative. 99.9% of it will be informing you that you need to pass the tax extension and the additional tax. If you find any documents that say, don't pass it, or that are against it, I will be stunned.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will be too.
I will be too, yes. Well, it's just amazing that, you know, none of the things that they came up with and claimed this was for are things that were emergencies.
Mhm.
It's not like we had a fire and something burned down that wasn't expected to, or a tornado, or something else. These are things that were wearing out, or that were, especially the one where they said there's a fire station that's 30 years old, that was an old house or something and never been replaced. Well, 30 years?
Right.
That's kind of a
Well,
long time.
but that's the way they operate these things. You sell it as public safety, and it's all public safety, public safety, public safety. But we're only gonna pass it at 50%, so that it's a general fund. So then it goes into the general fund, at which point they can spend it on whatever they want.
Do you think they'd have had a problem doing a special tax and earmarking it just for that and gotten the 2/3?
I think, I'm not sure, but I think with the 1/4% increase that they were proposing, I think you could go out and make the case that, you know, we have the fire station issues we need. We're redoing the police station. You could probably make a case, and that it's only gonna be for that, you could probably get to that.
Yeah, and then it would be earmarked and accounted for.
Correct.
And you're not off spending money, or,
But it's so much easier just to do 50%, and then you can spend it on whatever you feel like.
yeah, exactly. Well, Mike, we're happy that you're able to join us. We wish you well in your campaign. We know that's a lot of work, and our hats are off to everybody that's out there being candidates, because that's an awful lot of work and commitment.
A lot of walking and knocking on doors, but you get to meet some great people.
Right, and for you voters out there, if you don't vote, shame on you. You need to vote in June.
And if you're in Ward 2, I would appreciate it if you vote for me.
And it'll
Mike
be on
Vahl,
your
thank you.
ballot, Ward 2, and his name will be there. Thank you.